Welcome to another edition of Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends. This show was originally created to take one of more than 300 of my motivational quotes that I created for the contents of my book. And after studying 4 years of human behavior, I was always curious how the same quote landed with one person to another. Were they just words that lay there on a page, or were there a conversation needing to be had? We meet every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am Kevin McLemore, the Mindset Messenger. I am your host, and I am joined with my co-host, the voice of our show, Mr. Otis Spencer. The heart of our show, or the pair of hearts. All right, we have the king and queen of hearts, Mr. Christopher and Gilda James. And Gilda's not with us today, but she normally occupies either the right side or left side, or the emotional part, his heart, with Christopher. We also have our island sisters, and we have plenty of island sisters on here. We have Miss Lois Campbell, all the way from Jamaica, and the Queen of Yonkers, the Queen of Harlem, the Queen of Queens. We talking about, hey, what you say, Linez Kinsey? She is the top of the queens right there. And we have our new queen coming in here. She's a queen in training, Miss Danelle Chambers. All right, she's the youngest member of the show. And we have the wise. Everyone has their wizard. We have Curtis Battle. How you doing, Mr. Curtis Battle? So this space was designed not to make you comfortable, but to encourage you, to inspire you, to educate you, to model and create a framework just to make you think. The key points to this show is compassion, love, joy, world relations, personal pleasures, and the power of owning your own story. And so with that said, we're going to turn the show over to that golden, silky sounding voice. He's wearing that Boston Red Sox championship jersey from many, many years ago. This quote will probably be fitting to the conversation the voice is about to have. If you don't mind, our voice, deliver the quote for today.
Grand Rising, everyone. And this morning's quote: never be a prisoner of your past. It was just a lesson, not a life sentence.
You're exactly right. And I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. For all you Pittsburgh Steelers fans that keep talking about how many rings you have, this quote applies to you too. All right. It's what have you done for me lately? I'm probably never going to get a championship ring, but I'm still cheering for you, Cleveland Browns. And so I'm curious how this quote lands on everyone else because this quote has some power to it when you say never be a prisoner of your past. All right. Are these lessons to learn or a conversation needs to be had? Miss Lois Campbell, how does this quote, I'm a Southern boy, I'm going to go ladies first. How does this quote land on you?
You, grand rising, everyone. So never be a prisoner of your past. No man is so rich that he can buy back his past. No human being that ever made a mistake. Everyone have made mistakes. Some mistakes may be worse than others, but we all have made mistakes. We can travel back in the past. We can't travel back in the past to change what has happened. What we should do is learn from it. The lesson that was learned from it, try not to repeat it. Everything has a past. Everyone has a past. Every saint has a past, and every sinner has a future. Don't let your past define you. Life is a journey, not a destination. Don't be a prisoner of your past. Accept your freedom. That's how it landed on me. Thanks.
All right, all right. I'm gonna have to steal that one last part of your quote. Every sinner has a future. I'm gonna have to steal that. I like that. All right, and be free, free at last. Be it free at last. And the only way that you can be free is to let go of what's been holding you back and what's been getting you stuck. So, with that said, we're gonna turn it over to the man from Oz. Yeah, the Wizard of Oz is black. I know you guys are surprised. We've seen this over and over again. But just like our fashion, just like our music, everything that we move and we like and whatever comes from a brother or sister. So don't be surprised. The Wizard of Oz is black. How you doing, Curtis Battles?
I had no idea that I was indeed the Wizard of Oz, but I am so honored to be thought of in that aspect. Good, grand rising to all, and happy Sunday. So, this quote for me is all about thinking of how to fail forward fast. So when you're doing and you're an entrepreneur like Glenez and you're an actor like Otis, you keep striving and striving and striving. You learn your lessons every time you do something, and that just makes it more of a base for you to be able to keep going forward. We don't spend our time thinking about what didn't happen and why it didn't happen. We always are thinking about where we want to go, what our vision is, who are those partners like everybody who's on here that can help us collectively move forward, and what is that long-term vision we want to do, how we want to help the community, how we want to make a difference for our family, how we want to change the world. Whatever those are for you, it's about always having that future vision and thinking about what are the opportunities? It's not this drudge that you're going through, but how do I bring joy to the world? So that is how this landed on me.
All right. There's so many questions and so few answers, but the answer to this question is just that. How do you bring joy to the world? If it's time for you to get unstuck, this is the show that's going to guide you and show you how to get unstuck, unless you're comfortable being right where you are and not ever looking fast forward to where you could be. So I hope when you listen to the words of Mr. Curtis Battles, the Wizard of Oz, and it's amazing when you think about the metaphor of the characters of Oz, you think about it, the Scarecrow, all right? You think about the lion, the Tin Man, all right? Then you think about the wisdom of Oz. It's talking to the elders, talking to the people that's been there. I'm telling you, Black wisdom is something else. That's how you get unstuck, learning from your elders. And so we're going to go from our elders to our youngest queen in the making. She's a queen in training, Mrs. Danelle Chambers. I'm going to ask Otis before you deliver your version of this quote or your take on it for the voice of our show. And I like asking him multiple times to repeat this quote because I just love the sound of his voice. Love the sound of this man's voice. I'm going to tell you, he makes that special pie that they make from that movie. I'm not even going to say that because I can't even imagine eating that pie. Okay. It wasn't meant for me. But serve it up, Otis. Give us that quote one more time.
Never be a prisoner of your past. It was just a lesson, not a life sentence.
Just a lesson, not a life sentence. DC, young DC, the queen in training. How does this quote land on you?
So basically what it first made me think of is my perfectionism because a lot of times I strive to do the best that I can. Well, not a lot, every time I'm like, how can I blow this out of the water? And the thing is that I often, when I didn't hit the mark, would like beat myself up and say how I should have done better or try to like replay the situation so many times in my mind that it just wasn't necessarily healthy. So all of this also just goes to this understanding of what a prisoner is. And I know that we're like how it for me, like thinking about how we handle like prison in the US is where my mind kind of went there, where I always wondered how effective it is to have someone that sit there and think about their actions. And there's one part of yes, there's reflection, and yes, there's, you know, a point for you to try to make change, but how can you really make change or make amends if you're just kind of sitting there and not given an opportunity to do so? So it kind of always one of the most fearful things in my life is, oh, what if I end up in prison or what if this happens? Because I just always found it very counterproductive. But to go back to the whole perfectionism thing and how this ties in, it's just, I think our approach to learning and our approach to how we handle different situations as a whole, like, and I'm speaking more on the US front of things because, this is our home, is just the importance of how do we create those opportunities for people to not feel like prisoners. So I think it goes from the day to day to just how we even handle extreme cases of harm, that we kind of place this bondage on people where it's like as if we ourselves could never make a mistake, or been in a rage, or been in a place where we could have been, at the risk of making this mistake. So for me, I think there's no mistake that is so grave that you should be beating yourself up for multiple, like all this time. And it's just how do you move forward from that? So that's where it kind of lands with me. It's emphasizing the growth and emphasizing the power of moving forward and giving it a space to just learn, because we can't do better. If we never made mistakes, then life would be boring. And I don't really know the point of all of this would be, but I mean, it would probably have a different purpose. But I mean, just from how the world is right now, I don't really see how it would work if we didn't learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, you know something, you took a very, very basic quote and it got heavy. It became real, especially for people, both men and women of color. As long as you have a hue to your skin, we are more than likely to be incarcerated faster and for longer than most people. And that's our reality. And we live with that. And most of us, you know, some of us live life and never have this conversation. But when you have a young person that has experienced this life that shares this quote and says the reality, the truth is a lot of people don't need to be incarcerated. A lot of people need to tone to their mistakes and to make better choices, to be taught better choices. When you are in an environment where your options are limited and you go outside of your environment and find out the whole world is your oyster, as they would say, things change. And sometimes taking someone out of their environment and giving them different experiences will get them unstuck. I am so glad that you brought another layer to this. And I feel so sorry that when I turn this over to Christopher, that he's got to follow you. This is worse than following Lornez.
Mm.
I'm going to tell you. All right. I am so glad that I'm last, because my take on this is so simple. But something, Larnez said something earlier about being a superstar. I feel famous when I'm around you guys. You guys make me feel special. You make me realize the gift that I have and the gift that we give as a family here. And I just want to thank you, because I had to own my own stuff this morning. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to um, Mr. Christopher James is flying solo today. He is one king of hearts without his queen today. And again, there's not going to be a show that I'm not going to thank him for his sacrifice, his service to all military people. And we are very grateful that you have served this country, even at times when the country did not serve you. You served this country as a proud American. And for anyone that looks like us, we look at that flag and we see different, but we are still striving for freedom and justice in this society. And that's all we ask for. When we say Grand Rising in the morning, we're talking about a conversation of history that turns us away from good morning. And when you understand what good morning actually means to people of color, Grand Rising is much better, or good day is much better for us. So, Mr. Christopher James, how's this quote land on you, brother?
Thank you, everybody. Grand Rising. Uh, and thinking about the sacrifice, I was looking at a posting my niece had on Facebook. She's in Colorado now in the Air Force, and a beautiful picture, a beautiful young woman, and she made her choice of sacrifice probably the same way I did, but it's a beautiful thing, and I think it will continue. As far as the quote, boy, that's a good one. I thought I had it all figured out until I listened to Danny, and now I've got to go in a different direction. But it hit me in two different waves. The first wave came with something that I picked up or learned early on, and it had to do with past sins or prison, if you want to call it that. you individual are going to be about 100 times more critical of your actions than anybody else. And it's the reason for that's fairly simple. You are aware of everything you do, whereas other people can suspect, can infer. Basically, they can work on impressions of what they think you may have done, but you know exactly what you've done. So you can be a whole lot harsher in your attitude or your sentencing of yourself. And the way that turns out is you're going to find yourself in a situation where you will think less of yourself than anyone else around you. You will think that you're probably the very worst person that could possibly be because of what you know you've done, your own personal sentencing of yourself, and not reflecting at all on the impression or the person that everyone else has seen wherever you are or whatever you're involved in. So, one, that sort of makes you think, well, I'm shocked these people can even be around me. And two, you're not going to give yourself that benefit of being a regular person or a person worthy of the recognition that everyone else is trying their very best to bestow upon you. So if it's at all possible, get away from that. Forget for a moment that critical judge that you are over yourself and allow those people around you to make their own assessment of it. Allow your actions, okay, as presented to this group of people, the more mature, the more educated, the more calmed and complete-minded person that you are now in the actions that you're involved in. Because oftentimes those crazy things you did were back when you were young, back when you were crazy, back when you weren't as scripted or as mature as you are currently today. I say that because I'm like a bazillion years old. I'm 70, so forget that. But the whole idea is you're going to do things early on in your life that you are not going to be proud of. All right. But if you simply take those actions, and more importantly, the outcome of those actions as lessons, as training media, okay, experiences, and then then go forward with that, you're going to be a whole lot better person. You'll be a whole lot more mature, or more importantly, a more traveled person. You've seen those things. You know what can become of those particular actions. And if you just take that for the weighted value that it is, you probably know more than anybody else in that room or anybody else in that circle. They haven't gone through what you've gone through. But the thing is, until you recognize the real value of those actions, those crazy things you did, and not wear them as baggage or as a sentence or as weights, but as learning experiences, then you then can recognize you have a lot more to offer to that group, that circle, that family that you're in, and try wearing that as a badge. Try wearing that as your emblem of success. Not so much what you did before in the past, but what you're currently doing now, what you're capable of currently doing now because of what you did in your past. You're a whole lot better person, a whole lot bigger person. There was something else that Danny said that made me think in a whole different direction. This is the second part that I wanted to allude to. Our prison system, since we're talking about life sentences, our prison system is overloaded. It may have had a great ideal initially, but it's no longer serving that purpose. My great grandmother, referred to prison as the penitentiary. And when you think about that word, the old penitentiary, the idea is it was a place where people were put in to repent or to reflect on what they did and to repent from that particular action. Older prisons were actually large buildings or facilities with individual cells, and those cells were locked most of the day. And normally a person of the cloth would walk down the aisles or the different passages and simply read scripture. He would simply read scripture and allow everyone in the penitentiary to reflect on what they did to seek penance. Today, prisons are crime factories. A 19, 18-year-old kid who did whatever foolish thing winds up in prison and gets his graduate degree in crime from people who have been doing crime their entire life. And it's because we no longer have the space for the old style penitentiary, where a person gets a chance to reflect on what they did, not learn better ways to do what they've done. So anyway, the quote is one that I can certainly live by and take to heart, because we tend to look upon the things that we did in our earlier lives and sentence ourselves or punish ourselves for those items, and think that everyone around us is aware of the terrible person that I am, forgetting or being ignorant of the fact that no one else has seen what you've done except you. If you take what you've done and look at it as a learning device, and then mold all your actions from those earlier experiences, you can become a much, much better person you can even imagine. And allow people around you to see that person and listen to what they're saying, believe what they're saying, become part of what they're saying, and you'll be, well, no one is ever that perfect person, but you'll become a person that you will like a whole lot better than the guy that you have running around inside of your head saying, remember back when.
All I can say is, wow, clap your hands, drop the mic. Beware who follows Christopher. He has just raised the bar. I can't say anything else, but it's that when your mind is fully present, after listening to you, greatness will live. I can just
Oh,
say,
I
reach
like
one.
that. I like that.
All right. I would say, reach one, teach one, Christopher. Reach one, teach one. And before we open up to one of our closers, this is the person when we go on tour. Uh, I don't know. We all gonna have to step aside to hear Lonez, whatever. I'm just curious of how this quote lands on you. You've heard so many takes on this quote, as far as never being a prisoner of your past. It's just a lesson, not a life sentence. I'm just curious, Larnez. The dream maker. You know, connector of FUBU, the rebirth of FUBU, and many other designers. Larnez is doing great things in the background of this show. She's taking the East Coast by surprise, one person at a time. And you talking about rocking the boat? It's a freaking earthquake coming your way when Larnez shows up. Larnez, how's this quote land on you?
Well, blissful risings, I just want to say. I feel like this quote is saying too many of us are walking around letting like hard times weigh us down. We're stuck in some kind of emotional jail, but I have to remind you that the mess that you came through, it was just a lesson. It's a season. It doesn't get to dictate where you're headed unless you keep giving it power. I see it all the time. People letting their mistakes, their heartbreaks, and their failures run the show. But you have to realize replaying the drama on loop, that keeps your mind stuck. And trust me, God didn't put you here to stay stuck in a cycle of regret. Everything that went down, it's there to teach you something, to build your strength, to give you the tools you need to elevate. Now, don't get it twisted. Your past isn't your definition. It's your experience, one that's meant to sharpen you, not shackle you. Those heartbreaks, those lessons in resilience, those mistakes, our classrooms that taught you how to move smarter, faster, and more strategic. But none of that gets to hold you down unless you let it. It's time to let go of whatever's chaining you to your past. You are more than that sum of your worst day. The only thing that defines your future is what you choose to do with today. Step boldly into it, because everything you've been through is preparing you for the greatest version of you and giving you all the tools you need to walk with confidence. You are not bound by the happenings of yesterday. Claim your freedom right now. The life you've been given, it's a blessing, not a sentence. It's time to step into your purpose with power. And that's what this quote said to me.
And that speaks volumes. Look at what it says to you. It's amazing how something so simple, and we're all present with some quotes. There are either quotes that have been handed down through the generations, or quotes that we have turned a page to a book and said, I like that. I'm going to stick with that. I know with me, my grandfather always said, when you get to a point that you can help someone else out, he says, your duty to do so. He said, reach one, teach one. And that's what I've been doing since I was a kid. When I listened to the interpretation of this quote, and I said before, I was always curious, were there words that just landed on the page, or were there conversations to be had? And listen to each one of the quotes from our cast member, all my co-hosts. It confirms that this is definitely a conversation to be had, because every time we peel back a layer of this quote, a different definition or interpretation or perspectives of this quote. Now, after following Larnez, I'm going to tell you, everyone on here dropped the mic. So I know, Otis, you brought the quote. And for those of you who are listening, we meet every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And when you come on this show, you're more than welcome. But, each of us are responsible for each week. We bring a quote, something that we either heard, attached, or personally wrote ourselves, and we talk about the way that we perceive it. Otis, this is a hard one for you, and you brought the quote, right? Not only are you the voice of the show, you're the recipient, you're the carrier of this quote. I'm going to hang up the phone and hang up Grubhub and everything else, and let you go ahead and deliver your take on this quote. Why did you bring this quote, Otis?
Well, as time goes by, I see different things and different quotes. And a while ago, I happened to see this quote, and I took a screenshot of it. So, and then it brings a lot of things to life from my personal experiences. And my really thoughts out there, especially to the young ones and even adults, it comes to me as it's time to listen. God gave you 2 ears and one mouth. He wants you to listen more. And I think about my trials and tribulations, especially when I was young. My mother kept telling me, you need to save money. You need to start putting money away. But was my thought at the time, being a baby boomer? Hey, I'm not worried about tomorrow. I'm worried about today. I want to go out and have fun. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to travel here. Oh, there's a new gadget that came out. I want to get that. And I even see that to young people today, because when it's that time in the future, what do you have? You haven't saved anything. So we need to listen to the people around us, especially our elders. They've had their failures and they've had their success. So it's time for us to listen. And once you listen and you start having achievements, you can then be the one to teach others, to learn and teach them the errors of your past so they don't fall into the same steps.
There you go. It's all about being open-minded and listening, and opening your heart and taking some chance. Life is about chance and choice and the actions that follow. And each take on this quote just defines that. I know when I read the quote and listening to everyone here on the panel, all my wonderful co-hosts, Otis, Lois, Larnez, Curtis, Danielle, and Christopher, a lot of things ran through my mind. And it's hard to follow you guys, but When I look at the quote and I listen to it, and it says, never be a prisoner of your past. It was just a lesson, not a life sentence. My take on this is some of us live our whole lives stuck in yesterday. Coolie High is one of my favorite movies. How do I say goodbye to yesterday? The things that happened to us 20, maybe 30 years ago, sometimes sticks with some of us, and others decide to change clothes, change locations, and move on. But many of us constantly, no matter what happens, there's an argument that never ends, and we're always drawn back to that place that we swore that we'll never visit again. A good friend of mine just released a book. It's called Choose Joy. It's a survival guide of overcoming grief. There are many quotes in the book that stuck with me, but this one landed on me in a different type of way, and I'm going to share it with you. She says, I live in a land of never again, trapped between a river of maybe. Next time, it'll be better. It really isn't that bad, but we remain stuck, wanting to move on, but never ever really moving. This quote says to me, never let a negative experience from yesterday define your today. Instead, let those lessons be opportunities of learning that helps you grow, helps you to live a life with hope, and to teach you, even if you didn't lose a life, that experiences that we have that are negative is part of grief. But grief shows you the value of life. The word prisoner in this is a metaphor for me, in my interpretation, is being stuck, unable to let go of things that hurt you, things that you regret. As one of you guys said, talked about mistakes you made in the past, throwing difficult things out. All right. Sometimes we go through stuff that become valuable lessons to not only to yourself, your friends, your family, and to your children. Stuff does happen, and it's always going to happen. There's always going to be a problem, and there's always going to be a solution. It is not a life sentence. So we need to learn from the things that we make. My father always said, sorry was an excuse until you did it again. Admit that you're human. As humans, we make mistakes. Every now and then, we get in a hurry. We know that the light is going to turn yellow, and by the time we go through it, it's red, but we run it anyway, knowing if we get caught, we have to pay the price. But if we don't get caught, till the next time, we learn once we get caught. Life is about two things, and it's very simple: chance and choice, and the actions that follow. The only thing that I can say living to this and listening to this quote, when you're living, you're sharing, you're giving back, you're providing opportunities. When you're stuck, it becomes a life sentence in your head. Even though you may not be behind bars, if this mind does not allow you to move on, you have committed yourself to a life sentence of never having a better life, never being able to love someone that wants to love you, never appreciating the gratification that you've had, even though it may be delayed. All right. And never being thankful for the many gifts that you may have in your life that you overlook. I will say, I am by far the freest man that has ever lived. I am thankful for the people that served our country that allowed me this freedom. I am thankful for every brother and sister that sacrificed their life, living through woods that stood up to people that wanted to oppress them. I am thankful for the people that crossed the bridge with Dr. Martin Luther King on that bloody Sunday and held hands and did not throw hands back when they could have protected themselves. And I'm thankful that in a couple of weeks, that thousands of people will have enough common sense to not let history repeat itself in November. And so with that said, I'm not going to drop the mic. I'm just going to lay it here and walk away from the stage. So with that said, we meet every Sunday here at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you like what you heard today. I hope that you share. I hope that you comment. I hope that you go to www.RMK Productions and fill out your information and become a guest and co-host. We're probably the only show that allows a total stranger. The only thing is, when you come to this show, don't bring drama. Open up your heart. And, if you got a double-digit IQ, we welcome you. We have a triple-digit IQ. You got to compete against my co-host, and we welcome you too. But you're all welcome. Larnez, no, Otis, something we never heard you say the closing line of it. So I'm going to say to you, I thank everyone for listening. I thank all of our YouTube followers. It's much appreciated. And like I said, like, comment, and share if you will. If you're a person of high call to action, then this is a show that your friends need to know. So with that said, my grandfather said, when you get to a place in your life that you can help someone else out, it is your duty to do so. He said, reach one, teach one. And with that said, Otis,
we fade to black.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're out. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Until next time.